You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. Literally, I am back. I am back in the Chicago studios, maybe somewhat reluctantly after the gorgeous weather that was down there in the southern studios. 75 and sunny pretty much the entire week. Didn't get too hot. Was, not really as rainy as it tends to be down there. So just gorgeous weather. Come back here, it's like 38, sleeting, whatever. Typical mid to late spring Chicago weather here. Nonetheless, we are back in the Chicago studio. It means we are rocking and rolling throughout the week yet again. So look forward to all your great content coming at you this week. With the exception of the old OBC, the boot camp on Wednesday, I do believe Dan's still traveling overseas right now. So he'll be traveling, as well as I will be off doing a panel around here talking about the crazy year that was 2021 for options trading with the Flow Master and a bunch of other people. So I won't be around on Wednesday either. So we're probably going to have a best of for Options Bootcamp on Wednesday. Just bear that in mind. But everything else coming at you, Pro Q&A tomorrow, Options Oddities on Friday, a whole bunch of other fun. And, of course, you guys know where to get access to all that fun, theoptionsinsider.com/secret club. That's where you go to get all the above and beyond goodness, the live for every show that we do. Of course, the extra credit goodness that is the Pro Q&A and the oddities and all that other fun stuff. Speaking of fun stuff, we're back in the studio. It is time to commence our broadcast week. And you know how we do that by now. It is time for our favorite segments, one of my personal favorite segments. Can you guess that 80s wrestler? Going to go back to the well today. This is an iconic one. Dare I say, perhaps my favorite 80s wrestler, my favorite wrestler of all time, quite frankly. Recently, I saw the dark side of the ring they had about this guy, and it got me thinking about him again. It's that old saying, right? Never meet your heroes. This guy, obviously, probably a bit of a jerk in real life, like a lot of them were back then. But as a little kid, this was my guy. And, of course, recently, my son completed it. He presented me for Easter as a present with an ultimate version of the figure for this character, complete with 2 belts. Comes with 2 belts. That's how legit this guy is. So without further ado, can you name this iconic 80s wrestler? All right. I had to let it go. That's one of the best there is. The best there was, the best there ever will be. No, not him, but one of my favorites. Nonetheless, our chat, they know me so well by now. They guessed it before I even played the music. Mr. Uncle Mike. First off, we are joined by Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Looks like the Pit Boys having some technical difficulties. We'll see if we can get them added on a little bit later in the show. But they missed the guessing round then. No points for them. Uncle Mike from St. Charles Wealth Management. It is all upon your shoulders, sir. If you miss this, you may be dead to me for the rest of our days. Whose awesome music was that, sir?
All right. Well, hello. I humbly accept your welcome to the show. I will go with The Ultimate Warrior. I knew before the music was playing as well.
Have you had a chance to check out the Dark Side of the Ring about him from the most recent season called Becoming Warrior, sir?
I don't know if I've seen that one. I saw another documentary on it. It may have been Dark Side of the Ring, but just it showed how he came about and how it seemed like what really made him spiral is that he wanted to get paid a lot more money, and he kept asking for more money, and Vince didn't give it to him, and then it didn't work.
Yeah, apparently Jake the Snake held a grudge against him for a long time. Back when Warrior finally got his Hall of Fame induction, I think it was like around 2014, 2015, sometime in that time frame. Jake the Snake was waiting to jump him backstage because
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, because he said that in the Dark Side of the Ring. He said because they were about to have a title run together before Warrior flaked out and had his demands for he wanted to be paid the same amount that Hogan was, and he wanted the same share of the revenue, and he threatened to no-show events until that happened. So Vince didn't take kindly to that and fired him, and that was right before he was about to have a big title run with Jake the Snake, which, according to Jake the Snake, was going to make him just tons of money. Apparently, back then, you got paid by the belt you had. And so he was about to be set for life, and then Warrior screwed all that up. So he still harbored a grudge many decades later, and apparently they put it all to bed finally at that Hall of Fame induction, which, irony of ironies, Warrior comes out, does a speech at Monday Night Raw, I believe, the next night. Talks about how the spirit of the Warrior will run forever, well beyond his heart beats his last beat, dies that night, has a heart attack that night, and dies right after giving that kind of iconic speech. So all of that stuff crazy. Been floating around my brain ever since I saw that documentary. And of course, I have on my desk right now, I will send you a picture, Uncle Mike, the double-belted Ultimate Warrior figure. Double Ultimate. That's how cool it is. It's pretty fun. As we keep on rolling, it is time for the Trading Block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we talk about, surprise, surprise, what the heck is trading out there? And you know what? We have yet another day of red as many concerns are leaning on the markets out there today. Of course, the combo, what's going on with the Fed, market valuations, overall valuation concerns, and of course, the ongoing just maelstrom that is Ukraine. In fact, that is our question of the week right now. I won't say you guys whiffed it last time, but the clear, overwhelming majority of our audience, when we asked this question last time, about almost 2 months ago now, which is crazy. I think this has dragged on for 50-odd days now. But we asked you at the time, how long is this war in Ukraine going to really impact the markets? A few days, a few weeks, a few months, a few years. And 70-odd% of you were in the few weeks or less camp. So clearly we are beyond that point, unfortunately, right now. So we're asking you this again with the benefit of a little bit of hindsight now. We're asking you, how long do you think the war in Ukraine will continue to impact markets and volatility? It's going to be between, pretty much 1 to 3 months. So sometime in the next few months, we're going to see this impact mitigate. Sometime between 3 and 6 months, we're going to start to see that impact mitigate. Sometime between 6 months and a year, it's getting a little bit longer term. And then over a year, maybe depressingly right now, we have over a year winning by quite an aggressive majority. That's quite the shift from our poll just a few months ago. Again, this just went live right before showtime. This will be our question of the week, so you can find it at Options is the place to go to make your voice heard, listeners. Meanwhile, it's time for us to go around the markets here. Like I said, red on the screen, even though it does seem to be mitigating a bit. So if we wait a little bit, maybe we shall see the market start to turn green. As we're speaking right now, NASDAQ off about 0.5%. We have the S&P off about 0.2%, and we have the Dow off about 0.1%. That puts all of our favorite vol products up a bit since our last show. VIX was at about 23.25 when we kicked off the show, puts it up about 1.25 points from this time last week. We have VVIX at about a 114, up about half a point. VXX, again, this kind of weird beast now, trading right around 25.25, up slightly, up about a quarter from our last show. UVXY at about 13.5, and VolQ at about 28.25 when we kicked off the show. That puts it up about 3.25 points. So NASDAQ vol getting frothy again. And of course, we got to factor in our newest additions to our vol trading arsenal, SVIX and UVIX. We've had one session for them. We've been tracking them so far on the show, listeners. Coming at the start of the show, SVIX, which is, of course, the inverse, the old XIV, at 13.75, down almost half a point, about 0.4 point. And UVIX at about a 16.5, up about 1.1 points. That's, of course, the double long VIX out there. You guys slinging those out there right now? We have our question of the week answers from that a little bit later. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Now it's time to go back around the horn. Let's go to the Uncle list of Mike's. Uncle Mike, looks like you and I holding down the fort out there today, so be prepared to put on your talking pants. First off, what are your thoughts on my sweet double-belted Ultimate Warrior on my desk today? And then B, aside from that, if you have time, what is lighting up your tape today?
I mean, that's a pretty sweet picture. A double-belted Ultimate Warrior. I remember that was the big thing when he beat Hogan at WrestleMania, to where he had the Intercontinental title as well as the World Heavyweight title at the same time. And then I believe they had to do a tournament to see who would get the Intercontinental title, because they said that you can't possibly hold two belts just because it's too much work on the person holding the belt. So that was something that was a big thing by President Jack Tunney at the time, from what I remember.
Yes, Jack Tunney. Remember those days when Vince was just the announcer?
That's right. Jack Tunney. He was the president of the World Wrestling Federation, and it was something else, to say the least. But I remember the Warrior. It was too bad that it couldn't continue to work with him, because they could have gone a lot of ways with the Ultimate Warrior, but unfortunately, he wanted to get paid a little bit more than what he was worth, at least in the eyes of Vince, and was willing to do whatever it took to get certain things. And, there's a saying, squeaky wheel gets the grease, but the problem with that is if you squeak too much, you just throw away the wheel and buy a new wheel, and that's what I think kind of happened to the Ultimate Warrior, unfortunately for him. Unfortunately for this market, we are down just about 12 points on the day today for the S&P. So it's not a lot. It's not a major move down by any means. But I think that with where we're going on it, we also have bonds down today, a slight sell-off in the 10-year note. And when looking at this, it's kind of a nothing day, in that the market just kind of wants to hang out here with the levels with which it's at right now. And that we sold off early in the year, and then over the course of the last month or so, what we were able to do is we were able to get some buyers coming into this market, and then now we're selling again. So with where we're going and what we're doing, I think that we're at a pretty pivotal time right now. The fact that we'll have earnings, and with our lows, our recent low on March 14th being around the 4160 level, we go up to as high as 4600, and then now we're back down at the 4400 level. I don't know if that's exactly 50% retracement, but in looking at this, we could be building up a base to catapult the market higher, or the fact that we went up to the 4600 level is just a bunch of dumb luck, and it was the chance to get out, and the market's just going to tank right now. Who knows? So I think we are at a fairly pivotal point in the market with where we're looking from a technical standpoint. I think with earnings coming out, that's something that can obviously drive the market one way or another, good or bad. We'll see where it goes. But we do have a lot of earnings coming up, which I'm sure Mark will be talking about. And I just think that now is really a time to be cautious if you're able to. Now, in terms of the other things moving the market right now, or the other things that we need to take a look at, silver is actually up 1.5% on the day. And so it's still not as high as it was a couple of weeks ago, but we are still getting a little bit of movement out of silver. Energy, we got XLE up 1.75%. And that, along with a little bit in the financials are up 20 cents on the day looking at XLF. up about just under 0.6%. That's what's holding up this market from not being down a lot further, quite frankly. And then in the commodity space, oil itself, of course, not surprisingly, is up $2 on the day, back at the 108 level. So we're definitely holding the 100 oil without much problem. And then the final thing to mention is that we're getting not a ton of movement, but we are over the 40,000 mark again. Is that that coin thing, those chocolate coins you get at Easter when you get in the Easter basket from Grandma, you get those chocolate coins that are wrapped in the gold, not quite tinfoil, but it's kind of like thicker than tinfoil type of stuff. That they're really good. No, not that. Bitcoin. Bitcoin is back around the 40,000 mark. So we have that putting into play as well. That's what's lighting up my tape today.
Yeah, we'll get to all that fun in the crypto space a little bit later. Got a great guest joining me to do that on the crypto rundown a little bit later today. All you live folks can listen live, of course. All you on-demand folks, hit next on your podcast device of choice. Should be hanging out there waiting for you. There, you're right. It's a lot to unpack there. We'll get to that a little bit later today. First, let's get to what's going on out here in the big dog markets out here. Let's start with VIX. VIX not looking quite as big today. 146,000 contracts on the tape right now. That ADV still hanging out at around the 475 level or so out there. So not a huge day out there in VIX land. Again, it isn't a huge day out there in the markets. We're kind of just waiting for some other shoes to drop, and that'll really set us in one direction or the other. Right now, kind of just hanging out. And those kind of days, usually you don't see a very robust response from VIX, usually from a volume perspective, at least, unless someone's out there doing 1x5s again to the upside. We shall see a little bit later this week on Volatility Views. SPY, a little over 3 million, about 3.12 million, puts it slightly over half of its ADV. Its ADV is a little bit under 6 million right now, about 5.8 million. So SPY looking right around an average day's worth of volume right now. S closing in on 1 million contracts, so that's not nothing out there. 982,000 contracts up in the S right now, the ADV. 1.67 million out there. And small caps, at least the IWM flavor, 330,000 contracts, the ADV. 702, so not quite halfway yet for small caps. We shall see how that persists out there. Speaking of seeing, let's see what's going on out there right now from a single name most active perspective. And this will also give you some sense of kind of what a middling day it is. Only cost you 153,000 contracts to break into the top 10. That's the lightest we've seen it in quite some time here on the show. And that gets you to our old friend Occidental Petroleum. So back to the energy space that Uncle Mike was just talking about. 153,000 contracts, like we said, at about $62 right now, up about 265 or 4.5%. Let's see how we looking. We're pretty much we're flirting with all at least 52-week highs out here in Oxy. That's good for 153,000. Number 9, our old friend Citi. I haven't seen them in the top 10 in a while, but then again, it is that time of the earnings season. It is financials time. Citi good for 162,000 contracts today. They're at about $53, up about $2, or nearly 4% right now. Number 8, our old friend AMC, the former king of the memes. Now who's the king of the memes? I'll let you guys determine who that is. But AMC hanging out right now, number 8, good for 219,000 contracts. That's usually probably enough to maybe break into the top 10. Not today. Number 7, back to ChargePoint Holdings. Haven't seen this one in our top 10 in a little while. Not really moving a whole ton today either, which is kind of interesting. 15.20 is where they're hanging out right now, off a nickel. So not a big move day for ChargePoint Holdings. Maybe they have earnings coming up. I'll have to look or something along. They completed a fast charging thing 5 days ago. I know that's driving paper today. But either way, 219,000 contracts on the tape for good old. Let me just pull it up really quickly and see what's going on. By the way, ticker symbol out there, listeners, if you are intrigued. ChargePoint, CHPT. Oh, looks like we've got some longer term paper out here. We got 53,000 of the Jan 20s going up, as well as 52,000 of the May 20s. So perhaps a bit of a roll. Let me look really quickly. I'm just intrigued why so much paper is going up. June 14 puts went up 30,000 times today for $1.32. Looks like against the May 20 calls. So looks like we got a bit of a risk reversal or a strangle. It's like they may have bought that. And then we've also got same time Jan 20s going up 30,000 times as well. So June 14 puts And then May, let's see, are those? Looks like the only thing that's opening there is the June 14 puts. So interesting. Maybe they're rolling the Mays to Jan. That would be an interesting time to do it. But yeah, a lot of paper lighting it up. Then 20,000 more of the May, Jan 20. That went up as a spread that time. So that's where all that paper is. Wow, something is afoot out here in charge point. Total, like I said, 53,000 of the Jan 20s, 52,000 of the May 20s, 50,000 of the June 14 puts, 20,000 of the April 16 puts, and 20,000 as well of the May expiring on the 6th, 15 puts. That is a heck of a lot of paper. That's $1.50. You're talking almost 200,000 contracts. Just in those 5 contracts. Wow. And that's why Charge Point is number 7 today, listeners. Wow, something afoot in Charge Point. Perhaps need to look into that a little more. Maybe I'll bring that back up on oddities. We shall see. Number 6, AMD, 368,000 contracts for number 6. You don't need me to break down AMD for you. It's a day that ends in Y. It's moving. Also is its sister chip name, NVIDIA, 384,000 contracts for them at number 5. Then we've got number 4, Bank of America, back to the financials, 394,000. Number 3, it's Tesla. Day that ends in Y. Tesla's probably going to be hanging out there somewhere, 426,000. Number 2, the newest T-named Musk item in his arsenal there. It's Twitter. Still rocking and rolling out there from an option perspective today. Good for 427,000 contracts. And the number 2 spot on our top 10. Twitter up $2 or 4.5%. The on again, off again, on again. Drama with the board. Now, Musk says the board owns almost no shares. Jack Dorsey sounds like he agrees with him. All kinds of drama. Which, again, when Musk gets involved, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get drama. Nothing else, you're going to get drama. And they're getting in that right now. It's also translating to some paper, so you're going to get some volume, too. Drama usually equates to volume. Today, number 2, 427,000. That means number 1, on a kind of light day, the fruit company Apple hanging out there, 693,000 contracts for a weak number 1 today. Apple off about 85 cents or about 0.5%, hanging out at around 164.40 or so right now. Let's get on out to some more action out here. Let's get out to earnings season because we are back in it, listeners. If you've been waiting with bated breath for the newest edition of the Earnings Move results, earnings season, and earnings trades reports, we got them for you in our hot little hands right before showtime from our friends over there at Oratz, hot off the presses. Sink your teeth into them now. Get while the getting is good while they're hot and gooey. You know, that gooey earnings center, really tasty out there. This week, we got some big names popping off. Today, we got Bank of America, good old Chucky Schwab. Tomorrow, we got J&J, Hasbro out there on the toy side, Netflix on the streaming side, Beamer, and all sorts of interesting sides of the tech side. Moving away from the consumer front a bit, though. And then IB, so Mr. Petterfee, see what he's up to tomorrow. Wednesday, we got P&G, Abbott, NASDAQ, Tesla, Alcoa. So they used to be the kickoff to earnings season, Alcoa, not anymore. And United Airlines. Thursday, American Airlines, AT&T, and Snap. Friday, we got Verizon. We've already got some earnings move results reports for this morning. Let's go out to Bank of America first. Let's see. They're at 37.60 going into their announcement. They're pricing in 3.8%. They delivered 3.4%. So this seems like pretty much a very much in line report out here for Bank of America. Let's also go to our old friend Chucky Schwab, a.k.a. the 800-pound gorilla in the brokerage space these days. It was going into their announcement, 82.75. They were pricing in 3.5%. Looks like Chucky Schwab got a shot to the ribs out here. It's off nearly 9% right now. We're almost $7.50, trading 75.35. So down almost, $9 from where it was going into the announcement. So my goodness, quite the drubbing here for good old Chucky Schwab. What's going on out here? Income falling short of targets, misses its earnings. Slowdown in trading, a trading slump they're saying here. So maybe, obviously, Chucky Schwab, highly transactional business these days. They bought TD after all. So they kind of dominate the transactional side of the space. Maybe that side not looking as robust. Either way, Chucky Schwab taking it on the chin today. So for some earnings vol outperformance, let's see what else we've got. We've got coming up tomorrow before the bell, J&J. 180 is where they were hanging out. They were pricing in nearly $4. In the past, they've moved $3.34. A little bit of extra juice over there in J&J. Kind of hard to argue that isn't merited. Let's see what our old buddy Thomas is up to. Thomas Petterfy tomorrow after the bell. 65 and a quarter is where they were trading. They were pricing in $2.90. In the past, they moved the $1.43, so more than 2x. Wow. Juice on the docket for Mr. Petterfy and company tomorrow. IBM, 19th after the bell as well. 126.5 is where they were trading. 5 3/4 is what they were pricing in. The past, they moved 6.10. So as you might expect, kind of a sleepy number looking like here for IBM. Netflix used to deliver a lot of vol. See what they're up to these days. 19th after the bell. 341.10 is where they were trading. They were pricing in $30.5. In the past, they've moved 24 1/4. So more juice. The order of the day in Netflix. Again, that online content space growing increasingly competitive and crowded every day. So maybe that's why we're seeing a little bit more juice out there these days. Tesla always delivers the juice. The 20th after the bell. 985 is where they were as of this report. They were pricing in $61.20. In the past, they moved $64.45, so a little bit less. Maybe they worried he's moved on to other things like Twitter. United Airlines, 20th after the bell. 45.10 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $2.50. In the past, they moved $1.91. So a fair amount of extra juice in United Airlines. American Airlines, they're the next day before the bell. $19 even is where they were trading. They're pricing in $1.07. In the past, they've moved 80 cents. So a wee bit of extra juice out there in American Airlines. Let's go to AT&T as well. April 21st before the bell. $19.50 is where they were trading. They're pricing in about $0.50. In the past, they've moved about 2/3 of a buck. And let's see, got any others out here? Got Verizon. Let's go to Snap. Snap 21st after the bell. 33.20 is where they were trading. $5.35 is what they were pricing. In the past, they moved $6.71. So a wee bit less juice out there in Snap. Remember, we kind of joked recently, like, who the hell still uses Snap? And then they surprised everyone with their numbers last quarter. So apparently some folks are still using Snap, and they're still making some money. Let's go to Otis, my old stomping grounds out there in CT. Otis Elevators, 25th before the bell. 74.75 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $2.96 worth of elevator vol. In the past, they moved $2.76. Extra 20 cents. Is that merited? Is it worth that extra 20 cents elevator vol? I suppose we shall find out on the 25th. Right now, the season with a whopping 18 names reporting, listeners, is hanging out at 68%. So not exactly looking too optimistic yet. But again, we've only got 18 names under our belt, listeners. So we shall wait and see as even we get 1 week under our belts. That'll give us a better indicator. And usually week one's pretty good. Week one has come in at 91% on average for the better part of the last 12 cycles. So week one's usually a banger. And so we shall see what we get for week one. Oh, we already got looks like we got some trades. We're still tracking some trades here for the earnings trades report. Right now, we got 41 long straddles. We've got 20 short straddles and 53 long calendars. You want to see how all those are working out for yourselves. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go. Meanwhile, we got to get on out of here. It is time for an Uncle Mike edition of the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we get a little weird, we get a little wild, we get a little whimsical. It's like our chat saying every time he was doing a scan for the last week, charge point was coming up. That could very well be the case. I wasn't doing a ton of scanning towards the end of last week. I was traveling hither and yon, but yeah, charge point, something is afoot out there. We may have to save some of that goodness for the oddity is coming up a little bit later today, or later this week, I should say. By the way, speaking of a little bit later, I say if you just wait a little bit, maybe these markets will turn green. That is indeed the case. S&P and Dow both up about 0.15%, a little bit more than that. NASDAQ still struggling to get green, but fighting that way. Looks like, it's 0.03 now. It's getting close. So we shall see if it takes green. But I said, just wait 5 minutes if you don't like these markets, and that's pretty much what we're seeing out there right now. All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, are you ready? Are you prepared? Have you put on your Odd Block pants, sir?
I kind of wear Odd Block shorts, but I'll do my best.
All right, it's kind of chilly for Odd Block shorts, but if you're down with that, I'm okay with it. All right. Who am I to judge your fashion sense, sir? The dollar store. Great fashion there. The good stuff. All right. Let's keep on rolling. Let's get on out to our first name here in the odd block today. This is, of course, the portion of the show, listeners, where we unleash the eye of Sauron and see where it fixes its gaze today. And this is a bit of a weird one. This is ticker symbol. This is AI, and this is C3.AI Inc. This is out of Redwood City, this name. But I'm trying to see exactly what this name does. Obviously, it's an AI-related name, obviously, but I'm trying to see what exactly they do in the AI space. Either way, trading right now, $18.95. Let's see, off about $0.75 today. On the year, let's see what's going on with this name. Oh, another sordid tale of woe over the past year here as well. This one, C3.AI Inc., was trading $62.10 a year ago. They rallied up to close to their high for the year of $72.50 on the 26th. Sold off hard on May 13th to $48.89 before popping again. They had a little aggressive period there over last year, up to their high for the year of $76.85. And they kind of gave up that pretty quickly. It got down to about $60 again in June. And they kind of kept trending lower, trading 45 again by mid-August. And then they trended lower again, 29.75 on December 3rd. And then they kept trending lower. Looks like their low for the year came back on right on March 14th, like a lot of names did, listeners, at $16.58. So they went from almost $77 to $16.50 over the span of last year. So a rough run for them. They have rebounded a little bit since then. They got up to, looks like about 24.25 before getting back to where they are again, right around shy of $19 again, $18.93. So rough time. AI, C3.AI cannot catch a bid, or at least can't really maintain a bid. They can catch a bid. They just can't keep it over the course of this past year. Yeah, a rough session, a rough year for them. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found today. Perhaps we'll glean a little bit of insight from this. It looks like someone, Mr. Uncle Mike, if the Rock Lobster is here, he would probably like these. These are right up his alley. These are some line in the sand puts. We've come to know and love these on the program many times over the past couple of years. This time, it's the May 15 puts going up 8,900 times for 32 cents, as the Irish like to say. Right off the bid, they were 30 cents at 40 when these went up. So this was about a 79, almost an 80 vol, listeners. And yeah, let's see. The stock was a little bit higher when these went up, 19.25. So selling puts, stock drops a little bit. Never your favorite thing out there if you're the put seller. Let's see. These go through May, and the next earnings are on June 1st. So this is not an earnings play. This seems like, Mr. Uncle Mike, someone just saying, you know what, this name's been pretty beat up of late, and it got down to around $16.50 last time. I'm going to go through that. I'm going to go down to 15. So I'm going to sell those for 32 cents. So I'm going to buy this stock for essentially right around $14.70. So it sounds like someone's pretty comfortable buying it there. And looking at this chart, it's kind of hard to fault them. Is there a takeaway as well, Mr. Uncle Mike? Someone drawing a nice line in the sand, looking to maybe buy some stock of C3.AI around $14.70, sir?
I would say so, because whenever something like this happens, I think this one's kind of a no-brainer. So if you like the stock and you want to get paid to buy it, there's really not a more fun thing in the world than getting paid to buy something you were going to buy anyway. And that's kind of what the hope is right here.
Does seem to be the case. So we shall come back to these, listeners, and see how they fared. Do they get the stock? Do they get run over? Kind of hard to get run over with these. Obviously, the stock can go to zero, so that'll leave some tire marks on you. But given where the stock has trended over the last year, $15 level, or actually the $14.68 effective level here, nothing to sneeze at when it comes to this name. We'll keep an eye on this bad boy. You guys traded these? C3.AI, is this on your radar, listeners? Hit us up. Let us know. Now, speaking of how things performed, let's get to some of those now, because we just had April expiration, kind of a weird one up, obviously, with the Good Friday holiday. So we've got a lot of trades to pay off, listeners. Let's go out to our show from April 4th, so not too long ago, exactly 2 weeks ago here on the network. Let's see how some of the names we profiled then, how they came to fruition. First, let's go back out. TEVA Pharmaceutical Industries. This is the Israeli multinational pharma name out here. At the time when we profiled them back on April 4th, listeners, somebody really liked the April 10 calls. They came in and scooped up 9,844 of them for 12 cents. The stock was $9.52 when they did that. That was about a 46 vol, if you're wondering. Then they came in and did more. They bought about 1,000 more for 16 cents. And they kept doing that, picking away at these things. A total of 28,000 of these bad boys traded on the day. So they were not playing. They wanted to really get an aggressive swing at the bat here in TEVA. What makes it even more interesting is they did all these in April. And there are earnings coming up, but this trade does not include them. The earnings are on April 27th. So this was kind of a pre-earnings swing at the, I won't say swing for the fences, more kind of like an aggressive double you're looking for here when you're buying a lot of pretty much near out of the money, near dated premium like this. And looks like this one, I guess you can say kind of worked out, Uncle Mike. Looks like they took some of them off the next day, 6,000 of them for around 27 cents. So they made some money there. They doubled their money on that 6,000 lot. They still had roughly 22,000 left. And they pretty much ended up going into expiration with the remainder of that OI. And it looks like they kind of made a little bit of money on these, but not much because the stock closed at 10.19, listeners. Remember I said they bought them for 12 cents and 16 cents. So they made a few cents here or there, but they also ended up getting the stock because these were still open. And the stock, at least when we kicked off the show, was down to around $10.11. So that means they were actually technically losing money now on this trade. But it looks like it has rallied again up to around 10.19, 10.20. So they're back up to making some money slightly. But it seems like, Mr. Uncle Mike, they're kind of just hanging out, sitting on a bunch of stock right now, and I guess hoping fortunes change aggressively in the near term for TEVA Pharmaceutical Industries. Is that your takeaway as well, sir?
Yeah, that's what it would be. The thing I like about this trade is that they took something off the table right away. And so by doing that, you can kind of let the market pay for your trade. And that whenever I like to do, I shouldn't say whenever, but a lot of times when I'll do a trade like that, I'll either, as the market will go my way, either sell another call against it in some way, shape, or form. That's not my preferred method because of how volatility works. But the other thing that I do like doing is taking something off the table like this, because you never know what's going to happen. And if you take a little bit of something off the table and then it goes against you, then you're obviously happy. But then if it continues to go your way, then you can look at it that your cost basis was lower on the ones that you have at the current time. So I'm a big fan of taking something off the table right away when it goes your way, because it can definitely benefit you in the long run.
And he did some of that, I should say. I mean, he took off 6,000 of this, so he took some profits, but not enough. And this is kind of just hanging out, kind of a bit of a scratch. So I guess we'll call that one kind of it's all right. It's better than getting run over, obviously. He ended up making some money, it seems like. But again, it kind of depends now, tick for tick, where the stock is, how that position is doing, because it's pretty much just sitting on some stock. Let's go out to another name that we profiled on that show. This was a newcomer to the Odd Block then. This was Lamb Weston Holdings. This was an American food processing company, one of the largest producers of frozen French fries and waffle fries. So there you go. You probably have had some of their products if you've had their frozen fries. At the time on the April 4th show, we profiled, this is ticker symbol LW, by the way, listeners. We profiled 2,100 of the April double puts going up for 58 cents. That's obviously the 55 puts. By the way, Lamb Weston trading right now $67.78. That'll give you some sense of where it's hanging out, maybe how these puts fared. It looks like they were selling these bad boys. They were 55 cents at 80. It was a terrible market, but again, it's an illiquid name, so you kind of have to expect that. So it looks like they probably sold these. That's about a 62, almost 63 vol. If you are wondering, the stock was, again, $60.50 at the time. They had earnings on April 7th. So this was a line in the sand that included earnings. So that could get a little bit more dicey, obviously. Obviously, a lot of that 58 cents they were collecting was some earnings premium that was baked in there. And it seems like the earnings were pretty decent. Let's look at this name. Because, yeah, they popped. They went from $60.50, which is around where this stock was when they put this on, to on the 7th, they were trading 65.25, 66 on the 8th, all the way up to closing on expiration at $68.71, listeners. So those double puts never really came close to, God never really had to sweat that. He pretty much had most of that 58 cents from the get-go there. So that's pretty much how you like to see puts like this work. He didn't take them off. You don't like to see that. Usually, if you have a winner like this, take the risk off the table. Close them out for a cent. Why make your risk manager sweat? Why should you sweat? We've seen it all many times. The one time you don't do that, it wipes you out. Take off your 2,100. It's not nothing to sneeze at, 2,100 contracts. That could come back to bite you if this thing all of a sudden restates all their guidance for previous years and for the coming years. The next thing you know, the stock's at 58 cents where your options were. We've seen a few of those over the years. So if you got a winner like this, take it off. This guy didn't. He let him go out worthless, and he pocketed about $122,000 on this. Again, Mr. Uncle Mike, to use the Rock Lobster standard metric, he likes to go for the old girlfriend or significant other's Ferrari. This is not going to get you that, but it'll get you, a Model S or something along those lines. Sir, what do you think?
I think that's probably the rate with which to go with it. And just to add to your point about closing out short options, whenever you don't do, I've personally never regretted closing out a short option in all the years I've been doing this, just because of the fact that there's so many horror stories as to what can happen that you're not expecting. And for a penny, especially nowadays, I mean, back in the old days, yes, I think I am getting old enough now to say the old days. In the old days, when you had to close them out for 5-10 cents because they weren't very liquid, and then you also had to pay a commission when you closed them out if it was above 5 cents, or I'm sorry, even if it was below 5 cents. Now, if it's 5 cents or less, you typically don't have to pay a commission. There's really no reason to hang on to that junk. Unless you really want to own the stock or get out of the stock, depending if it's a short call or short put, there's really no reason to stay in that stuff. So close them out. That is the main message that I have from this trade.
Close them out, live to fight another day, and live to listen to the next strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everybody, it's that time. It's Uncle Mike time. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. Looks like it's trending back in your favor, getting a little bit more of an Uncle Mike type of day. All the major indices back in the green now, so you could rest easy, wipe that single droplet of sweat from your brow. What do you have in store for us on this Uncle Mike type of day, sir?
I feel much better now. I just needed Mark Longo to talk about the Ultimate Warrior, and that can rally the market. I think that's what did it.
The spirit of the warrior will run forever, sir.
For sure. All right, so what I want to go through today is I want to talk about Greeks, in that if you've been trading for a while, you've probably heard the terms delta, gamma, theta, vega, rho, and I want to talk to you about what the heck this stuff means. And so first off, I want to mention that what Greeks are gauges. And that when you have a car, you have your speedometer, you have your temperature gauge, you have your fuel gauge, you have your tachometer, you have this, that, and the other, a bunch of gauges with which you use. And all Greeks are the gauges of what's actually going on within the option itself. I've heard some beginner traders at times say, I just want to trade 30 delta options, or I'm scanning for 50 delta options or 80 delta options. Well, you're going to have that on every stock. What you want to use the Greeks for is to kind of give you an idea to see what you are looking for your option to do. What do you want the option to do for you? And of course, everyone says either expire worthless or go up in value if I'm long, but at what rate do you want to do it and at what risk do you want to do it? And that's where the Greeks can be kind of helpful. So let's start with delta. Delta is a measurement of how much an option will move based upon a 1-point move in the underlying. Now, understand that delta is not constant. What I mean by that is that the further an option goes in the money or the further an option goes out of the money, the delta will change all the time. So when you see delta written on your Greeks for your option chains, wherever you get your Greeks, understand that delta is not constant. The second one that I want to talk about is gamma. Gamma is something that changes the delta. What gamma means is that's a measurement by how much the delta will change with a $1 move in the underlying. So if the stock goes higher, then that call option is going to be a higher delta. If it goes lower, then the call option is going to be a lower delta. And that's where the gamma is a measurement that can help determine where delta is going to go. Next, of course, we have theta. Theta is time decay. So in other words, let's say that you have a $1 option that's going to expire in 100 days. Well, that means the theta on that option measures how much it'll expire every day. And that's where that Greek is, or where that measurement is. Next, we have vega. Vega represents changes in vega represents the volatility of the option. V for vega, V for volatility. So this is where you can actually see how volatile the option is. And you can actually see something to where if you have a higher vega option, then that means there's more volatility in the option. And of course, a lower vega option is less volatility in the option. And finally, well, I don't think there are any more Greeks, so I'll just stop there. Does that make sense, Mark?
Yeah, I think you hit them all. We don't need to do any others.
Of course not. We have rho. Rho is interest rates, and interest rates mean that call options have a similar relationship to interest rates. So in other words, if interest rates go higher, then values of call options go higher. If interest rates go lower, then call options go lower, assuming everything else were in a vacuum. And there was no stock movement, no volatility movement, none of that. That's how it would work. And of course, put options have an inverse relationship to interest rates. So with that, understand that in this day and age, rho is not that much of a factor because interest rates are fairly historically low, but there is still a case for rho and why you need to have an understanding of it. Now, for more information on this, I'll be releasing a YouTube video on it for a much more detailed, what are the Greeks? Feel free to check this out. St. Charles Wealth Management typed in the subject box on YouTube, and that is the strategy block for today.
All right, that's going to do it for the strategy block. As we keep on rolling, it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're focusing on for the rest of this week until we can gather here together on Thursday. Quick update on our question of the week right now. Again, we asked you, looks like our first poll, a lot of you were leaning very short duration. Unfortunately, not the case with what's going on out there in Ukraine. So we thought we'd ask this question again. How long will the war in Ukraine continue to impact the markets and volatility? This went live right before showtime. Gave you 4 choices between 1 to 3 months, between 3 to 6 months, between 6 months and a year, and over 1 year. And right now, Uncle Mike, 72% of the audience choosing over 1 year, 22% saying between 3 to 6 months, and almost 6% saying between 6 months and a year. So, Mr. Uncle Mike, what are your thoughts on that? And do you have a vote in our poll this week? And then also, what are you watching for the rest of the week?
Well, I think what's sad right now is that this is dragging out a lot longer. I wish it wouldn't, but unfortunately it is. I really feel bad for the people who live in Ukraine right now. I think it's going to continue to go on longer. This is definitely something different than what I initially estimated. I'll be the first to admit when I'm wrong. And when I don't admit I'm wrong, Mark Longo tells people when I'm wrong, which is the good part of this show, quite frankly. But I think it's going to go on longer than a year now because with everything that's happening right there, I don't see Russia stopping anytime soon, unfortunately. And they have a lot of power that they have a lot of manpower that they can continue to use, and it shows that they've shown that they appear to be willing to use it, unfortunately. In terms of what I'm looking at the rest of the week, I want to see if we can hold this 4,400 mark in the SPX. We are above it right now, but we have been below it and above it. But for right now, it's still being held tight within this market. So watching that, continuing to watch the bonds, seeing if they're bottoming out. So far they have not, but right now they could be. We will see. And then I'm also watching silver. It's very quietly snuck back up to some levels with which it was a few weeks ago. And it's getting very interesting. And that's what I'm looking at.
All right. Uncle Mike's got to go chat with some clients. So we'll get him out of here. Listeners, you guys know where to go to listen to more content on the network. If you're on the on-demand side, just hit next. Crypto Rundown should be waiting there for you. Remember, if you like what you hear on the on-demand side, all we ask that you rate and review wherever you get these shows so new folks can continue to discover all the content. Of course, you want to go above and beyond. Join us for the Pro Q&A tomorrow. We had been asked by a listener to do an awesome SPX deep dive. We're going to do that tomorrow. I do believe the Rock Lobster will be joining me to dive into SPX. What the heck is it? Some more stories from the pit. Should be fun. So you guys ask and you shall receive. That'll be tomorrow's Pro Q&A. A lot of other good stuff coming up this week as well. And Mr. Uncle Mike, if folks want to check out your videos or your Twitter or anything else, where should they go? What should they do, sir?
Check out my website, stcharleswealth.com. If you're looking for a financial advisor who delves in the option product. I shouldn't say delves, I should say lives, assuming it's appropriate for the client. Check it out, and love to have a conversation with anybody. Love our listeners.
They are a good bunch indeed. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go to learn more about all of his goodness. We got to get on out of here. We'll be back in about exactly an hour, listeners, for the Crypto Rundown. If you're listening live, we will be rejiggering the live a little bit so that we could bring on the new guests for the Crypto Rundown and the Crypto Hot Seat. So we'll be back live in exactly an hour, listeners, for all that good stuff. Of course, tomorrow, Pro Q&A. Like I said, ask and you shall receive. You guys wanted a deep dive into the mysteries, the nuances, the legends, the war stories of SPX. You wanted me to do that for you, so I'm going to do that. And then the Rock Lobster said, hey, I'm jealous. I want to play too. So he's going to come join me for that tomorrow. So that should be kind of fascinating. The war stories of breaking into that crazy pit in the height of the GoGo.com craziness, a wee pup that I was. Fun stuff there. We'll get to all that tomorrow, of course. Education Wednesday. You're going to have an OPR on demand boot camp. I think it's probably going to be a remastered best of, so look forward to that. And then, of course, Thursday, back again, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.